Welcome back to our channel, where we provide updates and undisclosed narratives on Catherine, Princess of Wales, and her royal family. We are excited to share the following news. Buckingham trembles after new investigation found Meghan's storage unit in California shocked everyone. An insider source said that the new probe has to do with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's secret letter, which led to Meghan's storage unit in California being opened. What is inside changes everything. The Montecito archive inside the secret boxes that shocked the Winders. When the call came in, the sky above California was still a beautiful bruised purple. It was 6:30 in the morning on November 29th, when the coastal fog still clings to the Montecito slopes, wrapping the planet in a blanket of silent luxury. The call, which came from a generic storage facility on a route meant to keep people from being seen, was brief-clipped and did not include the normal small talk that goes along with selling old furniture and holiday decorations. The inspection of the inventory that the court ordered had barely started. The metal door to a unit leased almost 4 years ago had rolled up, and the cool fluorescent light within did not show a bunch of home things. It showed a well-preserved chronicle of a royal split. "We opened the unit," the manager said in a strained voice to a lawyer. "You have to come immediately." The gravel lot, which was still wet with dew, crunched beneath the wheels of unmarked cars within an hour. A private security consultant, the sort whose name never appears in public, but whose presence means trouble for the world's elite, got out of a vehicle with tinted windows. The initial notice came in the dry, bloodless language of contemporary crisis management from Buckingham Palace, which is 5000 and 8 time zones away. The California unit is now open. Preliminary contents are substantial. The term significant in the royal household's carefully chosen vocabulary is a fire alarm. It signifies that the fortress's walls have been broken down not by force, but by memory. The Prince of Wales was getting ready for a day of planned obligations in his apartments at Kensington Palace when the message was sent to him. Prince William, who has been taught from infancy to be the steady hand of the monarchy's future, and has been through a lot of public tragedies, is said to have stopped reading in the middle of page. Later on, many close to the prince would say that his face tightened into the familiar mask of serious duty that has come to characterize his reign in waiting. He did not spend time inquiring what had been discovered. He addressed a far more important question that got to the core of the monarchy's current problem. How long do we have before someone else does? When King Charles Roman III got the news at Buckingham Palace, he felt tired, as if the danger was more than just the current one. For Charles, the Sussex story has never been just a question of public relations. It has been a deep and personal failure, a split in the family that he has worked his whole life to keep together despite the huge strains of its destiny. He shut his eyes a little, an automatic sign that he was getting ready for another strike. What did they find? Why, he questioned. His senior advisor's first response was both ambiguous and scary. "We do not know yet, sir." But there were papers and tapes, recordings. The term lingered in the opulent salon, a haunting reflection of a history that the monarchy has never really gotten away from. The sound of another time of hidden recordings and whispered confessions that once brought the House of Windsor to its knees. As the sun slowly rose over the Pacific, the people within the palace knew for sure that a well-crafted barrier of quiet, erected over 4 years of strategic distance and polite reserve, was about to shatter. The dawn raid and the whispers across an ocean. The British monarchy, despite all its pomp and ceremony, is based on one simple rule: control. It has to be in charge of its image, its future, and most importantly, its past. The royal archives at Windsor Castle, a climate-controlled fortress of memory, keep and protect the official story. There, the letters of kings and the diaries of queens are kept organized and cleaned for future generations. It is the only thing that the institution can trust. So the finding at Montecito was not just a security breach or a public relations issue. It was the uncovering of a rival history, a parallel archive, a competing reality that was made and kept beyond the castle walls. This was an act of revolt against an old institution that was based on the holiness of its own tale. As the inventory team in California started its job operating with the calm haste of bomb disposal professionals, the first reports that made it back to London portrayed a picture of careful, almost surgical preservation. The first package was opened at exactly 9:22 a.m. Pacific Time did not have random souvenirs. It had the building pieces of a counter-narrative. There were leather-bound diaries inside, each one wrapped in archival paper. The top one has Meghan's beautiful looping writing, Winter Notes 2019. For any royal historian or palace insider, those 3 words were like a thunderclap. Winter 2019 was not a time of calm introspection. It was a period of breaking. It was after the couple's painful trip to southern Africa that Meghan told a reporter that she was not all right. It was also when the private talks between William and Harry, the brothers, allegedly became less regular and more tense. It was then that the Sussexes started to really think about living outside of the strict rules of the firm. A notebook from that time full of personal thoughts and notes about meetings that were ultimately boiled down to dry two-line sentences is like a Rosetta Stone for figuring out the whole Sussex departure. There was something even more powerful than the journals in the digital age. A row of flash drives. They were marked with a scary level of simplicity. January 2020, February 2020, and March 2020. These were the months of the Sandringham Summit, when everyone was running about trying to work out security titles and money. During these weeks, the monarchy changed in ways that affected everyone. What may be within them? Voice notes. What about transcripts? Audio recordings of the same discussions that the palace tried to keep secret. The Crisis Communications Squad at Buckingham Palace met in its subterranean briefing room, a fortified bunker that is only utilized when the monarchy is under a direct and immediate danger. One top advisor allegedly asked the quiet room, "If they include private talks or internal conflicts we never addressed publicly, we will confront a narrative we cannot control." That has always been the Crown's worst fear. It does not fear controversy. It has weathered centuries of that. What it fears is losing control of the story. As the reports from California became more precise, one member of the family comprehended this danger better and with more cold logic than anyone else, Princess Anne. Later that afternoon, the Princess Royal was briefed. She listened without saying a word, her arms crossed and her face a mask of royal calm. But others who knew her could see her jaw clenching slightly, which was a sign of suppressed rage. Anne has been through every storm in the contemporary monarchy, from the abdication issue she knew about as a kid to the marriage problems of her siblings and the public destruction of her brother. Andrew's image, she did not see this as a family drama. She saw it as a matter of institutional survival. Her first inquiry was quick and to the point, and got to the core of the situation. Does Harry know it was not about blame? It was about strategy. It was about figuring out whether this was a group effort or a single person's work. It implied in its harsh efficiency that these materials were not just found by chance. It implied purpose, strategy, and a long-term vision, drives, journals, and the ghost in the machine. According to stories from those who know, the second box was much more scary. It did not have personal items. It had the palace's own records, which were the machinery of the monarchy. Schedules, summaries of internal meetings, and briefing notes with the scary words private and confidential on them. This was like discovering secret government papers in a civilian's garage. It showed a level of access and a desire to keep documents that was far higher than that of a family member who was leaving. This was done by someone who thought they would have to substantiate their side of the story one day. One folder in particular sent a wave of panic across the encrypted connections to London. It was a big package with the words Commonwealth Discussions Winter 2019 on it. There was also a handwritten note that said personal annotations included. Queen Elizabeth II's most important legacy was the Commonwealth, which she thought was key to the monarchy's relevance in the 21st century. Meghan's multicultural background and worldwide appeal made her a great choice for a major position in the Commonwealth. It would help update the institution's image, but insiders have said for a long time that the project caused a lot of problems behind the scenes. There were apparently problems with the more formal conventional palace bureaucracy because they disagreed about the extent of her function, the pace of her initiatives, and the manner in which she worked. The fact that there was a file with her personal notes on those same talks may have shown the cracks between the monarchy's desire to modernize and its inflexible, unchanging structure. But finding anything behind the files turned the scenario from a crisis into a possible disaster. A thin, black, older-style recording device. It was the type of technology that people often miss or do not think much of. It was kept next to a set of USB drives wrapped in linen and without batteries. It had a label next to it that said 2019 notations. It was scary how unclear the term was. Did these voice notes make up a personal audio diary? Or were they, as one imperial courtier subsequently put it, the unthinkable? Were they recordings of intimate palace sessions made for personal safety? When the red level signal came to King Charles, he was claimed to have slumped down in his chair. The monarchy does not care about headlines. It cares about revenues. It is afraid of the type of proof that cannot be denied and can back up years of public conjecture. He was afraid for several reasons. What if the device stored instances of conflict that the public had only speculated about? What if it caught a heated argument between his sons? What if it included a stray, unguarded statement from an older family member that might be taken out of context and used against them? But a deeper, more painful notion came to his mind, one he seldom said out loud. Has Meghan always felt so uncomfortable in this place that she had to do this? William's response was different. He did not respond with emotion. He responded with strategy. He has been working for years to improve the monarchy's image, especially following his parents' divorce and his mother's death. Recordings may ruin all of his labor and change stories that he had carefully crafted. He knew that in the court of public opinion, the tape's substance may not be as important as the fact that they existed. Some people might see recording talks in the royal family as a terrible betrayal, while others would see it as an essential way to protect themselves. The lines of war would be formed right away. Princess Anne, on the other hand, viewed everything clearly and coldly like a survivor. When she heard the words recording device, she is said to have closed her eyes for a time as if to prepare herself. She understands that rumors do not bring down organizations, but scandals do. Secure everything before someone else does, she said right away. It was the order of a general who had just learned of a secret weapon from the enemy, but the worst part was still to come. When the California team opened the third box, they saw something that went beyond palace politics and media strategy. They discovered letters written by hand, and at the bottom of the stack, an envelope with a handwritten address that no one would ever forget. The truth with notes and a mother's echo. For a long, quiet time, the storage unit in Montecito stopped being a location for legal inventory and turned into something more like an archaeological excavation where a ghost had just shown up. The envelope was only addressed to Meghan, but the handwriting was immediately, startlingly recognizable. It was exquisite curled and had a definite forward tilt. It was the hand of Diana, the Princess of Wales. The supervising lawyer treated it like a holy treasure. The effects were huge. Diana's official letters are carefully stored away, and they are a secret part of the royal record. It could only imply that a private letter that the institution had never recognized had been sent via private trusted routes and was now in a California storage facility. It was a hidden legacy handed down from one generation to the next. When the fourth urgent alarm got to Buckingham Palace, King Charles read the sentence about a sealed envelope in Diana's hand and murmured, "Impossible." For him, this was not only a logistical problem, it was an emotional one as well. He was the best at understanding Diana's complicated nature. She was rebellious, smart, and sometimes emotionally unstable, but she was never reckless. Her writings and deeds were both on purpose. The thought that Mother had written something for the woman his younger son would one day marry, a lady she would never see, was too much for him to handle. It brought back decades of unresolved sorrow and familial pain. Why Meghan? He allegedly whispered, not as an accusation, but as a query that was heavy with a past he could not get away from. The news hit Prince William hard. He is fiercely devoted to the one thing in his life that his mother left behind. He has protected her name, kept her memory alive, and carried her flag into his own public service. The idea that a letter, which was a private part of her, had been going around without the family's knowledge or control was a huge breach. Has Harry seen it? Was the first thing he spoke that broke through the family's disbelief. The response was no. But the question itself showed the storm's new scary core. If Harry helped his wife get this letter, he kept it a secret from his brother. If he wasn't, then someone else in Diana's group had loyalists who had always been suspicious of the royal establishment. Princess Anne, who was always practical, did not see the letter as a ghost. She viewed it as a real thing that was now in the wrong hands. She said with icy authority, "Whatever is in that letter cannot stay in California." For her, the royal archives are the monarchy's last line of defense, and the official record against which all other claims are assessed. It was too risky for a paper this important to be outside that fortification. The remainder of the box's contents, on the other hand, told a sad story of Meghan's time there. There were letters from high-ranking people in the palace, and the tones ranged from friendly to very official. There was a written record of a phone call between two palace officials talking about how she was received by the people in the first few months. The last phrase gave a scary look into how the institution thought she will need to be controlled carefully. Not sponsored, not guided, and not welcomed. Handled like a variable, an issue that has to be fixed. This was the pattern that the world had long assumed, but the palace had always denied. Now it was in plain and white on a piece of paper that had been locked in the dark for years in California. A Trojan horse full of receipts. The fifth box was not the same. It was thicker, denser, and put together with the care of a court case. There were binders inside, each having a date range on it, like chapters in a very well-documented history. Summer 2017 introduction period. Notes from the fall of 2017 before the engagement. Public transition in 2018, 2019, internal communication, 2020 exit negotiations. This was not a scrapbook. It was a dossier of evidence. The inventory crew discovered laminated copies of press briefings and internal correspondence in the first binder. Meghan had scrolled notes in the margins. Some phrases were highlighted, circled, or marked with stars. Next to an overview of a palace's communication plan, a very basic comment, not correct. There is a remark from a palace source next to another note that says, "This was spoken confidentially, not publicly. Why is the story changing?" This was a real-time record of a woman observing her own tale being written and rewritten by forces beyond her control, and silently, meticulously retaining her own version of the truth. The binder that supposedly halted everyone in their tracks was called 2019 Communications Review. It has released images of private exchanges between royal personnel on WhatsApp and Slack. One thread from late fall 2019 spoke about how Meghan's press needed smart tweaks. One top aide wrote, "She is getting too much attention again. We need to change the story." One person said, "We have choices." Another person said, "Do not tell anybody." This was the smoking gun. The Sussexes had been saying for years that there were leaks and bad briefings against them, coming from within the palace itself. The palace strongly disputed this, but did not say anything publicly. This letter showed that there was a systematic attempt to control and maybe even lower her prominence. A folder with prepared drafts of declarations that the palace had never disseminated was even more incriminating. Statements that cleared up inaccurate facts, corrected erroneous articles, and defended Meghan against particular assaults. None of them had ever been outside. Instead, they simply witnessed quiet, which most people thought meant they did not like it. When Princess Anne was told what was in the binders, her opinion was typically forthright and quite smart. She said, "These are not keepsakes, these are safeguards." That one word, safeguards, changed the whole finding. It said that Meghan's acts were not done out of anger, but out of fear. It made it seem like she had joined the royal family with the idea that she would need to defend herself one day. This was a terrible discovery for King Charles, who aspired to rule over a more contemporary and welcoming kingdom, It indicated that the institution he was about to inherit had failed his son and daughter-in-law so badly that they felt they had to establish a secret archive to keep themselves safe. For William, the issue was becoming worse. People saw him pacing in his office, which he did when he was really stressed, much as his mother did. He was no longer only worried about how others saw him, he was worried about his sibling. If Harry knew about this archive, he was part of an act that may bring down the very institution he was born to serve. If he did not know, it indicated that his wife had built a whole other world that was apart from him. Both options would have been terrible for the already broken connection between brothers, but as the day went on in California, something unexpected happened that would change the emphasis from Meghan's story to the core of the royal family's suffering. Meghan felt calm when she heard that the binders had been found. She just asked one question: have they looked at the final box? The lawyer, who was perplexed, said that they had opened 5. There are 6, she remarked in a hushed voice. The final one is not mine. There was a pause. Who owns it? Who is it? The lawyer inquired. Meghan's response was calm, thoughtful, and changed the world. Harry's, the prince's pain, Harry's box, and the final reckoning. The 6th box was tiny and seemingly an afterthought. It was pushed up against the rear wall. The label was not written in Meghan's clean handwriting. It was written in Harry's messy, hurried handwriting. Private. Do not open without me. It was a request for privacy from a guy who has never had any. It was opened at 11:59 a.m. What was within was not a well-organized file. It was what one source called heartbreak in paper form. The papers were all over the place, doe-jared and emotional. The first folder has the name William 20,142,020 on it. Inside were printouts of communications between brothers that started off friendly and funny and turned into tense formal discussions over time, starting in the years before Meghan. A remark in Harry's handwriting on one page said, "This is when things changed." This was not a formal record. It was a private autopsy of a relationship that the world once loved. There was also a folder with the name Father. It contains letters Harry had written to Charles, although some of them were never mailed. The boy was trying to reach out to a father he thought was drifting away, and the father was trying to balance his love for his child with his responsibility to the crown. There was a sentence circled 3 times on one sheet. It was a frantic scream from the heart of the spare. I cannot be the spare if the position costs me myself. Last thing was another envelope. This one was sealed with a simple dab of red wax, and the impression was a single familiar letter D. It was another echo of Diana, a message from a mother to her boys. It was a legacy of love and suffering that has shaped both of their lives. When William got word that his brother had sent him a letter, his shoulders allegedly tensed at Kensington Palace. For the first time, his face did not show rage or calculating. It showed deep sadness. Those papers revealed Harry's account in his own words without any editing or protection from the royal machine. Harry had kept not only memories but also proof of how close they had been. When he heard the news, ruler Charles acted like a parent, not a ruler. He got it now. This archive was not an assault. It was a chronicle of what the monarchy had required of his sons, how the demands had torn them apart, and how a family had failed to keep itself together while keeping a kingdom strong. The awful, honest reality that Princess Anne gave at the end was something the institution had been avoiding for years. "This is the moment we were afraid of," she remarked, not because of the controversy, because of how honest it is. The boxes in the Chile, California storage facility are now like open chapters of a royal history that has been hidden for a long time by obligation and quiet. Now we know what Meghan kept, what Harry retained, and what the palace was so afraid of. The situation is no longer about a story the monarchy cannot manage. It is about a fact it cannot keep hidden. Thank you for watching the video. Please let us know your thoughts and say goodbye for now.